Welcome to Jesus Retold, Episode 3. I am your host, Bethany Brown. Joining us today is my co-host. She is a stand-up comic, actor, writer, and producer. Please welcome with me Nelia Linick.
Good to be here. Hello.
Excited to have you. And today we will be bringing you the story of Dinah.
I like her name.
Yeah, Dinah's one of my best friends is named Dinah.
Oh yeah, that was Dinah.
The story, what?
Good name.
It's a great name. The story of Dinah can be found in Genesis, book 30, 34, and 46, as well as the book of Jasher, chapter 33. Just for your reference.
Nice.
Yeah. So, have you ever heard anything? Do you know much about Dinah, or have you heard about her character from?
Only a little bit.
Okay.
Only a little bit. I think this one I've heard the least about from some of the other stories we talked about, especially the first two. Those are both really juicy. The Bible is juicy. I don't know if you guys know. It is.
It gets pretty real.
It gets real.
Real.
She is. Wait, Jacob's right daughter.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
See, I know that much.
Okay. If you guys caught our
I want to know more. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, thank God someone wants to know more. Not many people do. But hopefully all of you want to know more as well. So just to give you a little background on Dinah, she is the daughter of Jacob and Leah. And if you tuned in last week, you definitely heard about all of the drama between Jacob, Leah, and Rachel. Leah and Rachel were his wives. So there's a lot of drama in that household, and this is one of his daughters.
Wait, is Dinah the only daughter of Jacob and Leah, or is there other daughters?
You know, that's a great question. I actually don't know.
From scripture, it sounds like it.
I
don't know. You tell the story, and then.
I would say, and again, this is assuming, and we do a lot of that on this podcast when these questions are asked.
This is not like we're not like teaching Bible, or this is not like we're not theologians. We're just friends, right? Talking about stories from the Bible. So don't come at us, okay? Thanks.
But I mean, if you want to, I'm always up for a good fight. So.
What we mean is. We will gladly hear comments and concerns.
She's speaking for herself right now. No, I'm kidding. We concur. So I'm going to assume that just if I were to think about it, you know, Jacob had 2 wives and 2 basically maidservants he also bore children with. And so he had a lot of kids. We're very aware of the 12 boys because they ended up becoming the 12 tribes of Israel. But I will assume that there would have been other daughters within that mix. So, you know, maybe Dinah had a sister. I don't know.
Dinah made it to the book, though.
To be determined. Yeah, Dinah made it into the book, and she made it into both of the books, which
and
is
we'll find out why.
Yeah, we're going to find out why here in a second. So are you ready for this story?
Yeah.
You ready? All right. So basically one day, Jacob has left his family and his home, and he's traveling through these lands and territories where he would have been a foreigner. Mm-hmm. And in one of the lands that he had settled nearby, his wife Leah and his daughter Dinah went out to a festival where all of the women of the city would have gone to, and where there would have been dancing and celebrating.
Nice.
And
yeah, cute little
isn't that fun?
Mother-daughter bonding moment.
And I'm gonna write this guy's name down so I don't forget it. Okay. So while Dinah's there, the prince of the city, Shechem, sees Dinah, and he
Wait, what's his name?
Shechem.
That's a cool name.
It's a cool name.
Write that
And it was
down.
the city of Shechem, and he was the prince of the city.
So it's like if I was the princess of a city, then the city would be called Nelia.
I mean,
that's pretty cool.
Or Bethany, you know.
Well, you can have your own city. I'm just personalizing the story, okay?
I'm gonna tag your city and take it over so there's only one city with one princess name.
She's not
Guys,
letting the
I'm
Bible
totally-
stories get to her head or anything.
I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. I would be nothing without Noah. Alright, no, I'm gonna stop being so ridiculous. Okay. So Shechem sees Dinah and immediately is so taken with her, and he's never seen her before, so he starts asking around, like, why haven't I seen this girl? And he finds out that she's the daughter of Jacob, this foreigner who's now settled nearby his land. And so he decides to abduct Dinah, take her by force, and then forcefully rape her.
So romantic.
Very, very romantic.
I like that he first asked around, and then he was like, doing the right thing is too much effort.
Right, like just ask Jacob, can I, take your daughter out? Would have just been too difficult. So Jacob kind of wants to keep this under wraps because back then, to not have been a virgin, it would have been very hard to marry your daughter off if it was known that she wasn't one. And so Jacob, her dad, is really thinking about, what's best in the interest of his daughter. So he's very sweet, and he sends 2 maids or servants from his household to tend to her and to sort of make sure that she's emotionally okay while she's there. And in the meantime, Shechem ends up falling like madly in love with Dinah and decides that he wants to marry her and make her his wife. And his father was also very taken with her as well. So they thought that this was a great idea. So Shechem and his dad decide to then go and knock on Jacob's door and ask if they can take Dinah to be Shechem's wife. Now, the boys, the sons, her brothers, answer the door, and they sit down with the boys. And
Jacob's not home?
Right. I don't think Jacob was a part of this conversation. Yeah, Jacob was busy with, who cares about Dinah? He has 2 wives now. So he's busy, and the boys, they have the conversation, and they decide to, basically punk Shechem and his dad. So Shechem and his dad, they're like, we'll give you anything that we want. We'll give you money, gifts, we'll let you marry our women, we'll give you land, just let us have Dinah. So the sons say, we will only give you Dinah if you circumcise all of the males in your city.
Wow. Ouch.
Yeah, ouch.
Right? They're like, we don't want anything you have to give us. We just want you all in excruciating pain.
Right, because the Hebrews would have had to have been circumcised.
Yeah.
So they come up with this excuse: we can't intermingle with your people unless you do this.
Yeah.
And then if you do it, you can have our sister. So Shechem was he was a very favored prince, and the people of the land said, okay, we're all going to circumcise ourselves. But really, her brothers, they were tricking them. Mainly Simeon and Levi were tricking them, the oldest brothers. No, they're not the oldest brothers, just kidding. Simeon and Levi were tricking them. And after they were all circumcised and in a lot of pain, Simeon and Levi go into the city and they kill all of the men who are too weak now to fight. So they slaughter the whole city.
That's how mad they were?
Yes, so basically...
I mean, I guess, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have been mad that their sister got abducted and raped.
So they were
But,
they were furious because they took it as not just an act against them, but also an act against God.
Oh, I see.
When their sister was stolen and then raped, and they were like, you really think we're now going to let you, marry her? And they also really looked down on that people group, meaning after they did that, something that I didn't say is that the brothers talked and they said, how could we ever intermingle with a people group who believe it's okay to steal another human being and then also rape them? So at that point, the idea of ever being a part of this other people and marrying their daughters just felt off the table for them.
Okay.
But that was a great question. So
that makes more sense, but still.
Wow. And then they actually take all of the women for themselves, You know, we don't really know what happened to them, but they take them all.
So like at this point, they're not stealing the women; they're against it, but then they just did it because
Right. Well,
because they feel they're superior. Is that why?
I think they just took the captive city and then
they just kept what's
I think
left.
in that day it was common
That's
to
kind
sort
of what
of
you do, yeah.
not kill the women, but then not just leave them.
Like women and children, but take care of them.
Yeah. Jacob finds out about this, the dad, and needless to say, he's furious because he is a foreigner with a small family in Canaanite land, which is where this city was, and so now he is really pissed, and now also he says to his sons, and now basically the whole known world of that time knows that your sister was raped and stolen, and so what is going to become of her? And that's sort of where I'm gonna pause the story for now and get Nelia's thoughts here on all of this.
I just, the way I see it is that it kind of like their plan backfired because they went to avenge their sister, but they didn't really think it through, because if they're living in the land of a multitude of cities and they only attacked one, and of course all the other cities will hear about him, huh? Oh, of course the other cities will hear about what went down, right? And if they're all in the same, were they all kind of under the same rulership, like same kingdom?
Yeah, so they would have all been Canaanites, and there are certain people of the city of Shechem who did not want to get circumcised and went to the princes and said, because you've now done this, your own people are going to come in and attack you. And so
so they kind of caused the domino effect of like all kinds of not even revenge, what is that, uprisings.
Yes.
For a few different reasons at this point now, right?
And Shechem, in the brothers' defense, Shechem, after circumcising all of the men and thinking about things, was going to kill all of the Hebrews because he realized that his own people were going to kill him, so he was going to try to right that wrong.
Oh, I
which
see.
I didn't tell you.
So then, Jacob's sons kind of beat Shechem to the punch in a.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm-hmm. All right. What's happening with Dinah? Where is she? Did she come home? Is she back home?
So Dinah is back home, and
do you think it's possible that she might have been like finally okay with her new life, or no? What do you think, as a woman?
I think that.
I mean, so such a different time, so it's hard for us to like really put ourselves in those women's shoes, if you will. Sandals, I'm assuming Middle East. But
I would say that it is recorded that he was so very taken with her that he was like very kind to her, it says, and I mean basically he would have done anything for her to the point of having his entire kingdom circumcise themselves.
Touché.
I don't, as far as Dinah is concerned, we don't really get to see her viewpoint. We see Shechem's, her brothers, and her dad's, but never once do we really get to hear about what she went through. And then because that was so public, she actually ends up marrying one of her brothers, and that most likely was because no one else would have probably had her at that point, or would have been too scared. I mean, her brothers killed an entire city over
because
her.
She's tainted or whatever.
Yeah, so defiled.
Or Dinah.
Yeah, it is. It's really sad in that aspect. As
so
a woman, it's
awkward.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine that. Like you're kidnapped or abducted, raped. You married off to that man that not to you.
Well, not married. Oh, wasn't married off. Never,
well, I mean, by force, she's married to him.
Yeah.
And then everything's kind of flipped upside down, and then you marry your brother because that's your only option.
I mean, you know. Yeah.
Was he like at least like a half brother?
Well, she married Simeon, the one who destroyed the whole city. So maybe she made him marry her. Maybe she was so pissed. She was like, I was wronged, and then you wronged me. So you're gonna now have to take care of this. You know.
I see. I I just can't imagine living through that. Like I mean, we don't have her recollection of the story, but I wonder what that would have been like.
I kind of wonder, you know, I think that like what is really hard is in Dinah's situation, you know, because it was so public. It made her life so hard, and I think that that's something that a lot of people, even nowadays, it's hard for them to understand. Like they're like, oh, if you were raped, why wouldn't you come forward about it? Why wouldn't you take your entire company down? Why wouldn't you do all of these things? And I think that the reality is that when you're a woman, many times you're put in positions where it's a lose-lose situation.
Wow.
Where yes, you can get justice, but now maybe you won't get hired again, or you have to change your entire like career path, and maybe you don't have a large like funds to just live and wait for another job. And then now you're seen differently because everyone knows that you were raped, and so now people may see you as being damaged. So I think that even though this story happened a long time ago, it actually isn't a foreign story. It isn't something that is rare to any culture or any time period.
It's very relatable, I guess, at all times. Because I think, you're right. If she could have, she would have kept it secret, and then maybe
been able to have married someone
return
else,
home or
return
whatnot.
home, and like
and
deal
have
with
like
the trauma,
a second shot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she was obviously like, you know, I think for like the prince of the land and the prince's dad to be so taken with her tells me that there's obviously something very, very special about her.
Absolutely.
So to me, it's
and
like
if you
very
noticed
sad.
her out of all these women at the festival, right? It sounds like plenty of women were there. That is really sad because her hands are tied at that point. I feel like even now, even though in our culture things are more accepted, feminism is such a movement, and so many men claim they're feminists, but I do believe that, I hope I'm wrong, but I believe that there's something that will never change about the fact of how men react to finding out that a woman has been raped, especially one that they care about or love. Like, it's a very uncomfortable thought for them because by design they're the protector, the defender, and even though something might have happened to the girl that they're now in love with before they met her, I think somehow they still feel a certain way, and it's hard to deal with. And I think a lot of men don't even realize that until they maybe fall in love with the girl that they come to find out had been raped or wronged or sexually assaulted.
Yeah, it's really intense.
But it makes sense too. Like really, I think I'm glad we're hitting on the point of people saying, well, why didn't you come out and say something when it happened? Because I feel like the timing was really tough in a lot of situations.
Right. It's something that, you know, really no matter what, and for a very, very, very long time, has been such a difficult thing to come out about, or difficult subject matter. Even with, for example, like rape law, because women were property for so long, even in the United States of America, a lot of people don't realize that women were the last people who were able to even vote in this country. And so the original law on rape states that rape is wrong because it's an offense to the man who's with the woman. And so if the foundation of a law is wrong, then all of the laws built on top of that is wrong or flawed. Is flawed.
Yeah.
So if
it's affected by it.
Right. And so I think that, you know, when it comes to that subject matter and women, I mean, even women and their bodies, women and sexuality, women and being able to express themselves, it is like this thing that because most of society and culture really has been written by men, women really, it isn't until now even that females could divorce someone. 66% of divorces in the US are actually women leaving men. And that is maybe for the first time where a female can actually get a job, she can actually work, she can create a better life for herself. And so I think that, you know, this story, even though it was written like 3,500 years ago, is so extremely relevant to our lives now. Because it's a fight that we are still fighting, is to be seen as human beings and not as something that is traded or bought and sold. You know, I mean, not to go into this, but the sex slave trade is $150 billion industry.
That is such a scary number.
And so as a woman, for me personally, something that I so deeply believe in and believe in fighting for is, you know, my rights of being seen. And I think too, this very well-known psychologist kind of talks about the Madonna and versus the whore mentality, and what that kind of means is like the virgin versus maybe the prostitute, and how men oftentimes have a very difficult time seeing anything other than those two things. It's very hard for them.
That's so discouraging.
Yeah, to be able to actually relate to a female as being like them, like flawed or having desires or having passions or having needs. And so I think sometimes it's actually harder if you don't fit into one of those two categories. If you're just
It's
sort of
true.
a regular person, it can even be more difficult for you.
Yeah,
What do you think
feel
about that?
I think let me collect my thoughts. I think unfortunately, as much as men want to say that they believe we're equal and they accept us, I've experienced it personally in my life where I'm incredibly judged for living a fraction of a life of some of my male counterparts, some of my even male friends, or like dating life. And so that is so real because they, and again, like a lot of it is biology, and I think we don't talk about that enough. And I'm not saying that it excuses how men react, but maybe if men are aware of that fact or that reality, then they can pay attention to their reactions and kind of like question why they're reacting a certain way. Because why are you judging me for me doing something you've done and you do so much more than I do? You know what I mean? It's not even like a judgment. It's like they take it personally when it has nothing to do with them. And it's not like men I've dated, it's just men in my life. And it's incredibly frustrating because, yeah, I'm not going to be innocent all of my life. Let's like be real. But then like women who are in certain industries are like worshipped. Oh, strippers, oh, they're cool, all this stuff. Like so many of my guy friends are like, yeah, get her, girl, do what you need. Oh, so it's okay if I'm a stripper or a prostitute, but it's not okay if I'm in my 30s and I've had more than one partner. Gotcha. That's what? Hypocrisy. So I think I'm sure, I know there are woke men, probably my first time using this word ever, who do truly process these things and understand and are very sensitive. But I think a tremendous amount of men are not sensitive to that reality. And I hope that if there are men listening, that you guys can pay attention to that, because it is very hurtful when you treat us that way with your double standard.
A lot of studies show that most men think nothing of like women's issues, like unless by chance they actually have a daughter, and that's sort of when their brain like switches. Like even Jacob, like the brothers didn't think about Dinah and what was best for her, but her dad did. And so I think that, you know, when a man does have daughters, it's like I think you understand women in a different way. And until then, it's like, I literally dated a guy where he thought that any position that a female was, any position that a female was in work-wise, that like if she, for example, like if she was a bartender or a custom clothier or any service position at all, he was like, well, the female should just know that men automatically view that as like prostitution.
Wait, what?
Yes, and I'm like, wait, so you mean like a waitress, a bartender, and this was a highly, highly educated male with very woke parents. It was shocking.
Wait, a service position
that the female should understand that she's automatically going to be treated a certain way. Whereas the male counterpart, a male server, a male bartender, a male clothier or stylist, is seen as like the cool guy. Like the cool guy behind the bar that scores all the women, or, you know, the guy that you want to dress you. He's like your go-to person.
That's so scary. I've never heard of that perspective.
Yes, so that really was eye-opening for me, and a lot of, you know, his friends felt the same way. And so I do think that, you know, that when it does come to things like that, as a like female, sometimes it does constantly feel like you're just in an uphill battle. Like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah.
Like you're damned if you sleep with me and you're damned if you don't sleep with me. And I personally have had jobs with male bosses where I had to leave because of situations like that, because I wouldn't sleep with them. And it made my life so hard. And so there does seem to be still this sort of control and possessiveness over women. And, you know, I think that we're living in times where things are changing so rapidly and so fast that people really do need to educate themselves. And try to be as empathetic as possible. Like really try to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Like if your gender was consistently enslaved or raped, would you actually like that? Because guys always say like, oh my God, like objectify me, use my body as you want. But as a man, if you actually were consistently objectified and enslaved and you were seen as not having any other worth, it would break you, especially for men where their worth is in so much of their career and what they do and what they actually accomplish with their lives. And so I think that really a kind of what I would say is just trying to understand really means trying to put yourself in the situation of that person. And I love men. I have amazing males in my life, so this is not like an attack on the male gender whatsoever. It's just something to be very, I think, aware of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's not an attack.
I don't know, guys. They're a little sensitive.
Wait.
So I need to say that.
You are more
sensitive
sensitive than
feel
us.
very attacked sometimes. So I just want to know that that's not.
Yeah, no, this is not an attack. It's I think what we're doing is we're having a discussion about a sensitive subject, and we're really truly dissecting it, and it's not easy, by the way. Whoever's listening to us, this is not an easy conversation to have, and it's not a light one. So, you know, and my mind keeps going back to the story at hand, to Dinah, and just what that must have been like. I can't even begin to imagine. I'm so grateful for the time that I'm living in. Like I don't want that to be lost in this conversation. I'm so blessed and so grateful. But I think it's so important to pay attention And also it's a reminder of, not a reminder, just kind of pointing us all to pay attention to how we react and to pause and think, like how her brothers reacted. They reacted clearly without consulting their dad. They had the conversation with the prince without consulting their dad, and then they made a decision to act without consulting their dad. And I'm sure he was hurt. I'm sure Jacob was really hurt by both of those decisions, both of those actions. Because he, as a father, he loves all his children, right? Like Jesus loves all of us. So it was heartbreaking for him to watch his sons ruin his daughter's life, quote unquote, or like kind of ruin the chances of her having a second chance at a better life or a better future.
Yeah.
We all have neighbors.
Yeah, someone's outside my door. I think that you did make such a great point in that for those of us who do live in places where there are more freedoms, it is obviously a lot better than it would have been for us during those days where,
2,000 years ago.
2,000 years ago, I think it was pretty rough. I was also thinking about, man, like if the only option that I had was to marry my brother, like if like that happened to me and there was no other man on the planet that would marry me, and so I was forced to, oh my God, that's so uncomfortable on like so many levels. I can't even right now. If my brother watches this whole thing will make him like uncomfortable. Sure,
I'm like uncomfortable
really
for you. Like I think we're both like beat red right now.
Yeah, I'm putting myself in that position. But
yeah, I can't imagine. It would have to be. I imagine it would have to be a very platonic marriage between Dinah and her bro.
Maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe she had like a male maid servant that was her lover, and her brother was just for show. I mean, we don't know.
Very possible.
Very possible.
I hope so.
We would like to think that there was a way to have really made that relationship work, right? Because we don't like to give up.
Very optimistic over here.
Yeah.
And always thinking of ways to fix things.
Of ways.
Problem solvers.
And of course, that action did end up leading into these Canaanite wars that went on for a very long time. And so that action that Dinah's brothers did bring a lot of strife to.
So Jacob was
family.
So Jacob was right, because he was like, how did you not think about the possibility of these other outcomes? But we are like, I think it's human nature when we're angry or if like somebody we love is wrong, we're just ready to avenge and just go to like great lengths to prove our point. And then if we don't have good counsel, we can create more damage than good, or do more damage than good.
Exactly.
In our attempt to avenge someone.
I think that's so wise. I think it is always good to, when something does happen or you're wronged or someone that you do love is really wronged, to take a step back and wait before you immediately react. What is that verse? It says, quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I think that actually goes a really long way.
Absolutely. I feel like if the brothers had done that, at least waited for Jacob to come home.
Yeah.
Or what, I don't know, or gone to him for advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Would have been different. Would have been a different story. Anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think that's good.
I still feel like someone's out there anyway.
I know, that was really, I'm sorry. That was like
so
intense. Alright, I did order Whole Foods grocery, but yeah, it was like a very intense.
Oh, really? That's probably what it was.
They typically don't say a word. I don't even get a knock or a doorbell ring. I like open up the door. I'm like, oh, it's here. But this guy was like, yo,
he
your
wanted
food
you to
is
know.
here. We're doing this.
I'm hungry. Okay, hopefully she bought something good.
Hopefully I did. But I think, you know, just one thing is that if you are a Christian and you are a believer who's listening to this, you know, in the garden when Eve sinned, you know, God put a curse on Adam and Eve, and in the garden they were both equals. And then when God put a curse on Eve, the curse was that he, like man, will now rule over you, and your heart will be ever for him. And it doesn't take a lot of time or just looking at the world that we live in now or throughout time to see how real that curse actually is. And the Bible says that cursed is any man who dies on a tree. And so when Jesus died on the cross, he took the curse of sin, death, and shame, any curse that was put on Eve, any curse that was put on Adam. And so even though we are in this world as women of God, that curse just bounces right off of us. And I myself have experienced that in my life. And I've actually seen when I have been wronged, I've seen without doing anything, without I have to seeking vengeance for myself, I've seen God come through on my behalf, because we are not cursed, we are blessed in Christ Jesus. And so that is the positive note that I want to say from this conversation. Is that you don't have to actually live in that or accept that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah, unfortunately for us, because we're not under the curse, if we were in Dinah's position, we do have a second chance, or we have an opportunity to not marry our brother.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So much yes. Thank you, Jesus, for the ultimate sacrifice.
So thank you guys for joining us today. Again, this is Jesus Retold. Your host, Bethany Brown, and your co-host, Nelia. And we hope that you join us next week for episode 4.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay, bye.
Bye.